Hey y'all, today we're going to talk about the horizontal stack system, sometimes referred to as the H-stack or a HO stack. There's a lot of information to get through, so we are going to try to launch through all of this, primarily focusing on a couple of different things. Now there are a dozen different ways to run a HO stack. We're just going over one of the more common ones that our team is going to run, just so that we're all on the same page. So the primary things we're going to talk about today is going to be the cutter movement, how to know when you are initiated as a cutter, when the cutters and handlers swap, so what's the rotation system look like? Because as soon as you as a cutter catch the frisbee, you are now a handler, so you need to know each position and how to rotate through that. And then we're going to talk about the differences in a horizontal stack, how the handler resets depending upon where the disc is and what all three of them are going to do. So hopefully you can see the board behind me fairly well. You have your playing field, and then the red circles here are going to be the players. So jumping right into it, you have 3 handlers in the backfield, 4 handlers across, and how you would determine the first stage about when do you know when you're activated is this little black circle here will be the disc. Let's just say that the disc is on the far sideline over here. I only have the offense drawn, not the defense. But anyway, so if the disc is on this far side here, think of it in kind of as thirds. Each handler is a third of the field. So if the disc is on this far side over here, these 2 cutters are going to be activated, where one goes out and one comes in. Generally speaking, my preference is that the person on the outside clear, either by going out or by coming under and clearing, but generally going out, and then this other person will do opposite and come under. And they can be a little more slashy than they would be in a vertical stack system. If the disc is in the middle over here, then it's the 2 cutters in the middle who are going to be activated. One goes out, one comes in. And the same thing if it's all the way on the far side, then these 2 cutters here, one goes out, one comes under. Doesn't particularly matter which one, as long as you all communicate and bounce off of each other. So that's how to know if you're activated or not, depending upon where the disc is. Those 2 cutters that are closest to that third of the field are the 2 cutters that are going to be activated. Now, when it comes to how to know when to switch, let's just say that if the disc is over here on this side again, and this cutter clears out, so they're no longer there, they're making a cut out, and this cutter comes under and gets the frisbee here. Wow, that marker is really dying on me. But if they come to there, and this cutter here has gotten the disc at this point here, well, now we have a bit of a conundrum, because you have the one cutter who cleared out deep, and then the other cutter who came in and got the frisbee. They threw it right here. Well, the 2 handlers that are closest to the disc are going to reset to become 3 handlers across, and the handler that is the furthest away from the disc is going to push up into the cutting lanes, and everybody's going to rotate over. So it looks something like this. This cutter goes out, this cutter comes in, they get the disc right here. These handlers, this one's going to push to here, this one's going to push to here, and this one is going to keep pushing. Presumably these 2 cutters will have simultaneously already pushed because the disc advanced. And so these 2 cutters are going to push up and over, so here and here, to allow room for this handler to come up and be the 4th. So it resets us here, here's the other 2 cutters, and here's that 3rd person who went out. Maybe somebody rotated to fill for them. It just requires communication. There's not really a set way of doing it. And then this handler became the reset, this handler pushed to be the next one across, and this one is all the way up here to become a cutter. So that's a lot of information rather quickly, but basically the handler that's the furthest away from the disc is the one that's going to push to become a cutter, and all the cutters shift over just to fill the spots. And that's what HO stack requires a lot of, as just looking and filling and communicating. Going into the process for what the handler resets look like in a HO stack, to make it a little bit, there's only a couple of areas that's a little bit different than vertical. The basic principles still apply, but let's just say that you have your 3 handlers across. I'm just going to focus on the handlers here. If the disc is in the sideline, it is pretty straightforward. The disc is over here on the far sideline. This person can go dump or strike, either one, the same way as you would in a vertical, and then this person is just going to do opposite. So if the disc is here and the force is to the side over there, and they happen to run dump, they would run it just like they would in a vertical stack system where they come to here. Well, this person would just do opposite and come to there. Pretty simple. If the opposite is true, where the closest reset goes strike over to here, then that person over there would come dump. And this is a rare exception where they can maybe come towards the disc instead of away from it because they're already so wide. If the disc, however, is in the middle of the field, and this is the one to really differentiate why it's different than a vert, is you got to pay attention to where the force is. So let's just say the force is backhand for right-handed folks, and the disc is here in the middle. Well, then the person who is already here on the force side should already be setting themselves up a little bit behind at like a 45. There-ish, come on, marker. This person, if the force is backhand, this person who's on the brake side, whichever the force is, the brake side handler is going to run strike, and this person is going to do opposite. And so some people call it like a windmill. So they're just doing opposite to give both options for each other. So that's your basic hose stack setup, your basic hose stack reset system. There's obviously a lot more details and situational awareness that you need to have, but for the most part, that's going to be the principles of the setup, and we can talk about more of that at practice. What everybody needs to be aware of, though, is the three things that we talked about. The knowing when to be activated as a cutter, being familiar with that, knowing how the system rotates, and then knowing how to reset depending upon where the disc is.